Chapter 861, Real Masters. Inside the heaven-devouring turtle, there was a huge space in which the demon soldiers and generals were stationed, hiding here. They commanded the troops outside. This was the command center inside the heaven-devouring turtle. At this moment, all the demon soldiers and generals knelt on one knee with great respect on their faces. Before them sat a brawny man dressed in pitch-black armor. The man looked totally different from humans, with twisted horns on his forehead. His face was engulfed in gloomy and fierce presence. His skin emitted a metal glare, and his armor seemed to be part of his body. Compared to humans, he looked more like an evil demon. This being rested one arm on the armrest of the throne that was made of bones. Before him was a clear projected screen that showed the scenes outside. Countless demon soldiers soared up into the sky like black feathers. At this moment, black smoke covered the rivers, mountains, and land. The humans who were like ants and bugs didn't scramble to run. Instead, they dared to launch attacks. My lord. The demon generals sensed the presence, and they felt uneasy, afraid that this being would destroy the heaven and earth. In a burst of fury, the demonic god sitting high on the throne of bones had cold glints in his eyes. It's okay. They never thought that the bug-like mortals could be their enemies, but it wasn't a bad thing to let the demon soldiers and generals get some warm-up exercises before the real battle. Instantly, turbid waves surged and shot up into the high sky above the yellow spring sea. A streak of pitch-black evil presence spread out in all directions and gradually engulfed the whole sea area. The gloomy winds made those places look like the chilly, ninefold darkness realm. The huge heaven-devouring turtle in the distance was also engulfed in the vast evil presence. When the gloomy winds blew at the evil presence, people could see the demon army with chilly auras standing on the mountain-like head and continent-like back of the heaven-devouring turtle in neat formations. More frightening was that even mere demon soldiers emitted scary energies, let alone the horrifying monster which looked like a demonic god. Perhaps this was the legendary demonic god who could devour the heaven and earth. Boom! A huge noise sounded. The huge heaven-devouring turtle waved its giant palm, looking as if a heavenly pillar crashed down, surging up a heavenly curtain made of seawater. Two spiritual ships that were not quick enough to dodge were viciously crushed by the currents. Like a piece of paper, the pale spiritual light shield was shattered. Then, the spiritual ships instantly collapsed under this strike. While screaming, countless cultivators were swept into the ocean waves and got devoured by the turbid sea! At this moment, all the cultivators paused their attacks and felt chills running down their spines. At this moment, they remembered that it was the first time that they faced such enemies. Games, they had killed god-level enemies in the games, but they would never really die in the games. They could detect their enemies' weaknesses through deaths and find a solution in the end. But in the real world, they knew almost nothing about their enemies. There was a big difference and barrier between the real world and the virtual world. Reality was always harsher than the ideal world. Right now, they were facing existences truly beyond mortals. Before such demons, humans were like ants that were floating on an ocean. Feeling the vast ocean-like power, these people didn't doubt that a casual strike from their enemies would turn all of them into dust. Besides, when they were in the game, they could easily use certain skills since they had the talent of the main characters. But in the real world, they probably couldn't use these skills. Their cultivation strength wasn't even as powerful as 1/10,000th of the main character's strength. This was the difference between the real world and the virtual world. It would be fine if these enemy troops were like the troops of the Judgment Godly Palace, which concentrated only on cultivation strength instead of skills. However, the enemies had obtained great combat force on the bloody battleground while fighting with gods. They went through blood oceans and corpse mountains. In a few moments, the black currents made of demon soldiers swarmed toward the spiritual ships like a black sun army, bringing intense murderous spirit with them. Instantly, they engaged in combat with the cultivators and warriors on the battleships, forcing the latter to retreat continuously. The Xuanhuan faction master was casting spells when he was struck by a demon hiding in the demonic presence. Then, a demon that was 10 meters tall lunged at him with a roar. A sword beam flashed, and Xuanhuan ran to his rescue. "Leave me, go and rescue the others." The Xuanhuan faction master pushed Xuanhuan away and then killed his way into the crowd of monsters. Seeing the fierce battle, Xuanhuan felt as if he was teleported to the battlefield hundreds of years ago before Dajin was established. In that battle, he was ambushed by enemies, and the entire battlefield was dark with fierce killing. He didn't know when the battle would end, coming with lofty ideas but being beaten into a bloody pulp by the cruel reality. This was how he felt right now. The old man who was a veteran of wars again felt the heaviness of wars many years later. Cackle, humans are still so useless. The demonic god sitting on the throne of bones sneered. In his hand was a black three-legged cauldron full of crimson liquid, and the pungent smell filled the air. It seemed to be a special beverage made with the blood of a certain demon beast and some unknown processes. He gulped it down, and a shocking blood trace was left on his chin. "Go and tell them to bring out all the masters that they have." The demonic god said indifferently, "We can treat them as an appetizer before the war." "Yes. Didn't you do the raid? Can't you handle it as you did with Anton?" While he was thinking, Xuanhuan heard a roar. "But we don't have any intelligence on these demons." Xuanhuan wished that he could handle this giant turtle as Anton. They looked similar, but wars were not games. These players could learn the skills and combat techniques from the games, but how could they copy the tactics from the games? They were not stupid and knew that they would fail miserably if they copied the strategies in the games to deal with the demons in the real world. Besides, even though this demon looked like Anton, they were not of the same species. It wasn't something that these players could play with. One mistake would plunge all of them into a catastrophic situation. They could kill Anton since they had sent teams to cut off its energy supply and suppress its power as much as they could. Otherwise, the result would be different. But now, how could they suppress this horrifying demon? Chopona. Where is he? Nalan Mingsu browsed her communication jade while a layer of sweat appeared on her forehead. Even Zongwu and others were trying to contact Fang Qi. It must be noted that even in the battle with the Judgment Godly Palace, the shop owner had watched them from behind, which was why they didn't have to think about failure as the shop owner had their backs. At this moment, Zongwu received a message. I can't be there in a short while. No matter what, you must try it once by yourselves. Mr. Fang sounded tired. What if something unexpected happens? Zongwu asked in alarm. Then, change your plan accordingly. Mr. Fang looked up. The auspicious clouds blocking the sun released an even more horrifying presence. Obviously, Mr. Fang would have a tough battle before the new shop on the East Continent. Remember, you guys are also true masters. Fang Qi recorded this sentence on his communication jade and clicked send. Zongwu suddenly froze as he held onto his communication jade. We are also masters? Old Ghost Zong, what did Kid Fang say? At this moment, Nalan Hongwu grabbed Zongwu's communication jade from his hand. He said, "We are also masters," Zongwu said, "real masters." Before they knew it, they were no longer the noobs who complained whenever they encountered a difficult stage and must beg Mr. Fang to show them the walkthrough. Without hints and help from anyone else, they had cleared the Anton raid, which was extremely difficult to pass, and killed the horrifying apostle, which was even more powerful than gods. Now, they were also masters. Do we define masters as people who fight battles according to the directions from guides? Everyone, just now. The Cultivation Alliance got some intelligence at the risk of their lives after hearing that you are members of the party who completed the Anton raid and are familiar with the battle method of dealing with this kind of huge beast. At this moment, Moxian, Luninian, and other Nanhua faction elites fought their way through demon crowds with several jade slips in their hands. Are we really going to do it? Xuanhuan looked grim. It was a raid that they must win in one try, otherwise, not only themselves, but all other people would die. All the raid teams, gather. The people from the Cultivator Alliance and different factions also worked together. Give them support as much as we can. The raid begins. Inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle, the demon soldiers and generals were all watching the situation outside. At great risks, the human spiritual ships spread out in one neat line before the heaven-devouring turtle. Then, about 20 people broke through the demon soldiers' front line and landed on the huge head of the heaven-devouring turtle. In the surging murderous spirit and demonic smoke, several teams stood in a strange formation. One had holy light rising before him, one had dazzling thunderbolts around him, one controlled pure sword beams, and one looked as bloodthirsty as a demon. At one quick glance, they looked like godly statues from the ancient time who stood in surging murderous spirit. For a moment, these demons felt like they saw the illusion that true gods had been born on this battleground. Chapter 862. The unparalleled battle shocked gods and demons. Surrounded by an ocean of demons, these people, a little over 10 in number, looked over the demons into the distance. Altogether, there were 5 huge demons dressed in demonic armor and standing among the other demons like huge mountains. They were from the giant demon god clan, and they would obtain the power of an average godly figure the moment that they reached adulthood. The vanguard demon general standing in the front had a pair of huge halberds in its hands. It lifted its head and let out a furious roar, changing the colors of the wind and clouds instantly. What are they doing? In the command center inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle, they turned their gazes to this place. There are only a little over a dozen people. What are they planning to do? The demonic god sitting on the throne of bones gazed at the people venturing into their headquarters for no reason, and his face turned cold. Immediately, he issued a command. Receiving a signal from his gaze, one of the giant demons led demon soldiers to swarm toward the human teams tentatively. They were in the direction of Team 2 led by Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan stood in the front while Zhang Hao, the Vice Academy Master of the Heavenly Academy, stood beside him. Almost at the same time when the giant demon rushed up, it seemed like a prehistoric godly statue that had been sealed in dust for countless years had suddenly woke up. With a peaceful look on his face and a heart as bright as a mirror, a dazzling thunderbolt shot out from Xuanhuan's sword with strands of lightning snakes flowing around it. Illuminated by the thunderbolt, the entire blade was turned into the color of white jade. A streak of bone-chilling murderous spirit spread out invisibly, while his wide white robe billowed up with the dust on the battleground. Zhang Hao spread out his arms slightly, and a huge and invisible airfield circulated around his body. Essence changed into golden light beams and flowed around him, slowly lifting him up into midair. When a streak of aurora tore open the gloomy darkness and lit up in his eyes, the seemingly endless essence surrounding him instantly devoured all the essence in the natural world. Even all the demons around him lost control of their bodies and were drawn toward him. Meanwhile, Xuanhuan's left foot stomped on the ground. In the next moment, thunderbolts spread over the ground and transformed into a miraculous lightning array. Like a huge meat grinder, it pulled all the demon soldiers and generals who swarmed over into it. Finally, 2 huge and evil-looking sword energies slashed at the giant demonic god and sent it flying out and landing at the feet of Xuanhuan and the others. Like a fuse that was ignited, Xuanhuan's essence instantly rose to the peak. Another giant demonic god rushed over. At this moment, Xuanhuan unsheathed his sword, and all the monsters around him and even the time and space froze. Only countless godly swords hovered in the air. Like a god of the sword, Xuanhuan was the lord in this area. With a light slash, a sword pierced a demon soldier's chest. Then, the second slash, the third, the fourth. The slashes grew faster and swifter until the sky was filled with sword shadows. When the sword energies stopped after a long while, the two giant demonic gods had countless cuts in their armor and bodies. Almost no part of them was intact. Then, they flew backward listlessly and fell in the dust. Seeing this scene, an indescribable chill spread all over the battleground. When the team of less than 20 people advanced a step forward, the previously arrogant and horrifying demonic gods took a step back involuntarily. With disbelief in their eyes, they looked at the humans before them and shouted, "What's with these humans? Get out!" At this moment, the dragon-headed vanguard demon general who was holding a pair of huge halberds roared. Then, the tumor-like bumps on his shoulders squirmed and transformed into 5 dragon heads. The 6 heads separated and turned into 6 huge demon dragons. Instantly, the whole world was filled with gusts and lightning bolts. The heavens and earth changed colors as the black dragons soared in the sky. The black demon dragons seemed to draw pitch-black cracks in the sky, moving so fast that it was almost impossible to see their movements. Suddenly, black lights flashed. Like they were teleportating, the 6 huge dragon heads attacked from 6 different directions. While opening their huge mouths which looked as deep as black holes, they appeared as if they could devour everything in the world. Countless destructive black thunderbolts fell in the crowds, and the demon soldiers who accidentally touched them were instantly turned into dust. It was obvious what would happen if humans were struck by them. It has been years, and I'm surprised that these mortals have obtained some good abilities. Inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle, one demon general said, "The ninefold darkness demon dragons are not only equipped with endless spiritual power and great strength, they also were born with the ability to control winds and thunderbolts. They can fly over thousands of kilometers in one instant. I'll see how these humans block them." Deputy Commander Louis right. Another demon general said, "When the 6 dragons fly at the same time, one vital spirit must control 6 bodies simultaneously." The Vanguard General under Deputy Commander Louis is quite good. Of course, it was not difficult for one being to control 6 puppets at the same time, but it was totally different for one person to drive 6 fighter jets at the same time. One splits into 6. At the same time, the people watching the scene from the head of the huge heaven-devouring turtle felt fearful. The 6 demon dragons launched 6 different spells with different attack methods. At this moment, a bolt of sword energy looking like a streak of aurora lit up. The pure sword energy spread out, and countless godly swords flew out from behind Nalan Hongwu as if they had minds of their own. That's hypervigilance? Everyone yelled in astonishment. "You want to outplay me, in your dreams." Instantly, the 5 godly swords spread out behind Nalan Hongwu like wings and transformed into countless godly swords. More than 10,000 sword energies flew up together. Before the 6 demon dragons could finish using their spells and attacks, they were surrounded by the sword energies. Instantly, the 6 demon dragons were forced to stop. Outside the demon dragons was a circle of godly swords emitting 7 colored lights. The space inside the circle of the sword energies seemed to be totally still, looking as if it had been separated from the surrounding space. It was like a godly realm. Got you. The moment that the 6 demon dragons appeared, they were completely trapped by the unbelievable godly sword energies. The demonic thunderbolts scattered and didn't inflict any damage to the people around them. In a flash, the attack was launched so accurately that it didn't allow any demon dragons to escape. This play is so awesome. The people around them stared at the scene with widened eyes. Awesome. I can only control the evil dragons for 3 seconds. It's enough. DPS, full DPS. This. At this moment, even the demon generals who were watching the battle inside the giant heaven-devouring turtle couldn't sit still. They watched the scene dumbfoundedly. Born with godly strength and control over thunderbolts and winds, the Grand General of the Demon Dragon clan was instantly trapped by the sword energies and couldn't even fight back. This is a god and demon level combat technique. It's an advanced combat technique only an existence of our rank can use. A deputy commander yelled in surprise, "How can the weak humans use it? Only gods and demons who were born between the heaven and earth with extremely powerful strength and knowledge about the ultimate laws of nature could master such powerful skills. How could these humans achieve these skills?" Chapter 863, That's the great sage, heaven's equal, surrounded by the demon soldiers on the head of the giant heaven-devouring turtle, the group led by Nalan Hongwu felt like they were engulfed in dark clouds, and they charged in all directions with their weapons. Non-stop roars and shouts of fury resonated on the field. At this moment, it looked as if the heroic beings that had died on the ancient battlegrounds rose and burned in the depths of their souls. In the dark chilly scene, these people managed to kill their way out. Such a scene instantly ignited the bravery in all the other cultivators. Instantly, they were united for one purpose. A streak of clear light from the heavenly mirror rose and shone on the battleground as Lan Mo, the Ui Taoist Alliance Master, and some elders circulated their vital essence and controlled this treasure mirror. The demon vanguard is dead. Follow my heavenly mirror and find the source of the murderous aura. Lan Mo said loudly. The murderous aura filling the air had a very bad impact on most of the cultivators. If they could take the opportunity to get rid of it, the situation would change for the better for the cultivators. Team 5, stay here. Xuanhuan looked down and saw the horrifyingly huge turtle forcing almost all the cultivators to retreat with its attacks. He yelled, "The other 4 teams, follow me to cut off the turtle's legs." Soon, the teams leapt down from the turtle head. Meanwhile, the vital magnetic wind thunder battleships turned the cannons accordingly. What are they going to do? The demonic god sitting on the throne of bones looked thoughtful. "Liu, here." The demon general stood up slowly and bowed respectfully. "These mortals have some abilities," the demonic god said coldly. "You go and ask them if they want to join my army. Weak mortals always crave for the great power and immortality that I can give. Yes. The mortals will be honored to have garnered appreciation from you, ninefold darkness demon general." The demon general who responded had a bared head and was engulfed in blazing flames. Anyone getting close to him would feel the hell-like burning heat. But what if they don't want to submit? After killing so many demon soldiers in my army, do they want to leave intact? God is a character of combined ideograms, and its meaning derives both from Shi and Shen. Shi means the inspiration of wisdom while Shen refers to the shape of a lightning bolt, meaning speed and quality like lightning flashes. It also means morality and quality. TL note: God is in Chinese, which combines the two words, She, and Shen. In the ancient legends, the word God didn't mean specifically the existence beyond mortals. In fact, ancient legends started from the 3 emperors. In the new shop at the East Continent At this moment, all the players gathered outside of the shop. Some were cultivators who had come to help from other shops. At this moment, the cultivators of the half-city shop were not the only ones in a crisis. When the immortals of Gui family descended into a city, most of the players didn't witness the horrifying power far beyond mortals, but now, they truly experienced a power that no mortal strength could reach. These players had thought that a true immortal like Gui Yi was unimaginably powerful, but now, they found that they had been sadly mistaken. In the aura that was as vast and deep as an ocean, except for those immortal soldiers, every immortal here was much more powerful than Gui Yi, the immortal from Connate Cliff. Seeing such a presence, these people had the feeling that even if Chitandi was here in person, he wouldn't be able to kill so many immortals. The immortals looked down coldly from the heaven. "I'll give you one last chance." On the clouds, wondrous spell High Holiness said coldly, "Some of you don't have to die, you must make the choice to give up these unorthodox practices or die." "Why?" Xuanhuan Ancestral Master stood out and said, "What we learn is the orthodox great Tao, What we know are elegant and ceremonious greetings, what we find are all ultimate truths in the heaven and earth. Why can't we study these things? How can you call them unorthodox practices? Don't you think that it's too late to talk about it? Wondrous spell High Holiness yelled fiercely, you dared to kill immortal soldiers from our innumerable immortal sea and injure the vital spirit of an immortal of our Gui family. If we aren't allowed to do that, do you expect us to wait and be killed? Good, good, good. You mortals are so stubborn that you want to fight the heavens? Wondrous spell High Holiness furious yell came from the sky. He lifted his hand high and then waved indifferently. Then, you will turn into dust with this place. Instantly, tens of thousands of immortal soldiers and generals, countless immortal weapons, and the horrifying presence that went beyond mortals' imagination swarmed up like waves. In the next moment, they would devour these confused mortals and the human world. These mortals didn't know what they did wrong. Perhaps being weak was the biggest mistake that they had made in this world. The faction master and elders of the heavenly faction looked into the distance outside the cave abode. Those ordinary mortals without cultivation strength relied on the cultivators to cast immortal spells and superpowers, giving them a guiding light in this catastrophe. But how about us? When they rescued those mortals, they also wished that someone or some existence would show them the way forward in such a situation. After pursuing Tao for dozens of years and dreaming about Tao for thousands of years, they would die without regrets if they could really hear and see the real Tao. Kill. With a fierce roar, someone charged first. He was followed by the second and the third. These cultivators brandished spiritual artifacts and flying swords and charged at the immortals in the sky with crimson eyes. But in the next moment, they dropped to the dust one by one. Regardless of how they struggled, they couldn't get up. Despite their improvements and ability to handle some immortal soldiers, they could never fight the elders and holinesses from the saint families. At this moment, the people suddenly saw a figure shooting up into the sky. That is? As if they saw a heavenly light falling from the place beyond the ninth heaven and shining on the heavy clouds, the grand existences also turned their gazes toward the figure flying up into the high sky. The defiant figure dressed in gold armor and wearing a golden hat looked to be engulfed in blazing flames from Lozi's brazier, and the flames also flattened his scarlet cape. As if they couldn't believe what they were seeing, everyone rubbed their eyes subconsciously. They didn't see it wrong. The figure wasn't as grand as the immortals standing in the sky. He even looked a bit tiny. However, he stood before the hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers and immortals like an insurmountable natural barrier. A monkey? The immortal soldiers sneered when they saw the being before them. However, the people on the ground, the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, his body is as hard as ebony iron, his eyes are fiery and golden, his way of immortality. And the 72 transformations. That's the great sage, heaven's equal. At this moment, not able to control their feelings, everyone yelled, that's the great sage. Chapter 864, When the great sage comes, all immortals dim. I thought it was an immortal or a god. Uncontrolled laughter sounded in the sky, but it's only a monkey. Where did this demon monkey come from? How dare you run havoc in front of immortals and your granddad Yao? A cuss sounded in the sky. It came from a black-faced immortal general with intense murderous energy around him, with a bear-like head and tiger-like eyes. He had a brawny body and a huge hammer shaped like a golden melon in his hand. I'm Yao Tong, the Earth spiritual general of the Yao family. Today, I'll show you, a hairy monkey, the power of my heaven-shaking hammer. In the 8 ancient immortal families from the prehistoric times, there were altogether 72 Earth spiritual generals, each of which had extremely high cultivation strength and great military merits. Not to mention, is that Yao Tong, one of the top 10 Earth spiritual generals? Exclamations rose from the formations of the families. He's among the most powerful ones within the ranks of the 72 Earth spiritual generals. The immortals from different families talked among themselves animatedly. The 72 Earth spiritual generals obtained their rankings according to the military merits that they accumulated. This Yao Tong is indeed powerful. It was said that he once tore several demon dragon to pieces with his bare hands on the previous life battleground. Let's see how he captures this demon monkey. Seeing the golden melon-shaped huge hammer shooting toward the demon monkey, the immortal soldiers from all families looked pleased. But in the next moment, look at the great sage, heaven's equal. Tsunami-like exclamations erupted from the ground. Looking up, the mortals saw the great sage remain motionless and even use his head to block the huge hammer. Crack! It seemed like the entire world shook 3 times. The immortals from the different families who had been talking animatedly were horrified. They saw that the golden melon-shaped huge hammer cracked in the middle and broke into 2 pieces. With his spiritual treasure destroyed, Earth spiritual general Yao Tong shivered violently, and his face instantly turned pale. The golden melon huge hammer was forged with a special gold from outer space. One spiritual general roared, "It's impossible, how can it be?" Quiet. Wondrous spell High Holiness snorted and gave that spiritual general a hard look. In this expedition, he was the leader of the alliance forces of all the immortal families and had a much higher rank than these minor generals. Don't disgrace us by yelling in front of the enemy. The demon monkey has nothing but a hard body. Wondrous spell Almighty said, he will dissolve when we temper it with water and fire. Your wise, High Holiness, Spiritual General Yun. Wondrous spell High Holiness turned his head and said to the green-faced immortal general who was dressed in a green robe and stepping on a pair of black dragons, the demon monkey has some abilities. It seems like we must summon the spirit-melting godly flame of the Yun family. Spirit-melting godly flame? The immortals behind them became animated again. It's said that this flame was made by the ancestor of the Yun family by collecting the rare items in the depths of outer space and the essence from heaven and earth. It's a miraculous creation and can melt anything. Even the immortal masters don't dare to touch it. It's said that even one thread of this flame can burn a large group of heavenly immortals to death. Let's see how the demon monkey dies this time. What's this demon monkey doing? These immortals were more confident when they saw the look on the monkey, as if he was saying, "Do whatever you can, I'll admit defeat if you can damage one hair on me. This monkey will surely die." While they talked, the immortal general with the surname of Yun took out an immortal token made of ancient jade, and he chanted while holding a Taoist gesture. A little while later, the sky dimmed as if their whole world was plunged into a vast catastrophe. In the dark sky, a streak of golden light appeared. Then, a strange blue flame lit up in the space, flashing with waves of cold blue light. It seemed to have no heat inside, but everyone could feel that a frightening high heat was hidden in the gloomy blue flame. The immortals didn't even dare to take one step closer to it, afraid that the wind would blow the light-looking flame toward them. At this moment, the monkey didn't dodge. Instead, he remained where he was without moving a muscle. In the next moment, a surging fire instantly devoured the monkey. Ha 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 ha, this demon monkey is destroyed. In the sky, the immortals scorned while they looked at the mortals standing in front of the Origins Internet Club. We'll see what else you can do. FCK off, banana boat. Instantly, a disciple of the heavenly faction cursed. TL note. This curse came from a famous league streamer in China named PDD. Open your eyes and have a good look. Good cussing. Where did you learn it, senior brother? Seeing some spiritual generals shrinking their necks involuntarily upon hearing the cusses, one disciple asked curiously, "I picked it up from watching a League of Legends live stream." Zhuge Qinglong, the elder senior disciple of the heavenly faction, smirked smugly. At this moment, the immortal generals looked carefully with wide eyes. Sure enough, they saw the monkey rolling and frolicking in the strange blue flame as if he was taking a bath with great enjoyment. Too cool, not hot enough, make it hotter. What? All the immortal soldiers were stupefied. Even burning in the spirit-melting godly flame, he doesn't look uncomfortable at all. Instead, he is asking for more heat. These immortal soldiers and generals had never seen such a scene before. Even spiritual General Yun, who cast the spell, looked dumbfounded and yelled, "This is not real. The monkey must be using a spell to trick our eyes." The moment he said that, he saw the monkey shooting into the crowd of immortal soldiers. Instantly, the immortal soldiers screamed pathetically, ran around, and caused chaos in the formations. More astonishing was that Yao Tong, the Earth spiritual general, was caught off guard. A tiny flame jumped onto his body. Instantly, the flame turned into a blazing fire and melted his armor and tempered his body, causing a series of pathetic howls. If the flame continued to burn, this powerful spiritual general who ranked in the top among the spiritual generals would be turned into ashes. Quickly summon back the spiritual flame. Wondrous spell. High Holiness stared at spiritual General Yun, who stood in a daze, and reprimanded him loudly. "Oh!" Spiritual General Yao snapped back to his senses. Then, after biting open the tip of his tongue, he spat essence blood onto the ancient jade token. "Godly fire, please return." After spitting essence blood 3 times and issuing orders repeatedly, he finally withdrew the godly fire. By now, he was disheveled and covered in sweat, losing all the magnificence of an ancient immortal family. At this moment, a flag silently rose from the crowd in front of the shop. On the red flag were written 5 big black characters: "The Great Sage, Heaven's Equal." The flag flapped in the wind, adding more magnificence to the Monkey King, who stood proudly in the sky dressed in a golden set of armor and a golden helmet, looking down at everything in the world. At this moment, the immortals who had filled the entire sky changed color. Even Wondrous Spell High Holiness looked grim right now. High Holiness. There were many immortal generals in the ancient families, and the most powerful 4 were called the 4 directional spiritual generals, who were very famous among the immortal families. At this moment, their faces looked chilly. How about Wondrous Spell High Holiness's old face had never looked so cold before, and a gloomy glint flashed across his eyes. "You and I deal with the demon monkey together, and we will see how powerful he is. The others take the opportunity to capture the mortals. With these hostages, we can force him to surrender." Chapter 865, Inner Sage's Faction, The Rise of the Players. Clouds flew in all directions in Liuyun Taoist Palace. Beautiful flowers bloomed all year round in the Tanji Palace. Many pavilions and buildings dotted this place, looking like a chessboard with pieces on it. In the sky, spiritual patterns and arrays circulated like stars. Light dots hovered and danced like flying fireflies. A pair of eyes that were as clear as water opened while the spiritual essence stopped circulating in her body. After walking out of the palace, she saw a long pavilion winding through the rich spiritual essence and blooming flowers, among which colorful butterflies danced. It seemed like this was a paradise in the mortal world. "Master, Master." Her 2 disciples flew over cheerfully like butterflies. "How come you're late today? What have you been cultivating lately?" "Nothing special." Su Tanji shook her head and said, "Lately, I've been understanding the Tao lecture given by the immortal living in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 Stars in the mountain of mind and heart. Whenever I found enjoyment from it, I'd forget the passage of time. That immortal's lecture is very profound and mysterious. I think it's super difficult." Disciple Xin frowned slightly and mumbled, "Master, don't you find it too profound and mysterious?" "No." Su Tanji said. "Huh." The 2 disciples exchanged a look. "Does our master have extraordinary talents? Is she far more talented than average people? Are you more powerful than Senior Nalan and know how to do the cloud somersault?" Disciple Fengwu looked at their master in pleasant surprise and asked. "They all say our master is getting idle and becoming more noob, but it seems that those rumors are just slander. Look, she can even understand the mysterious Tao lecture given by that powerful immortal living in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 Stars. No. 72 transformations? Xin asked immediately. No. Have you obtained the way of immortality? No. There are so many spells taught in the cave of Slanting Moon and 3 Stars. Why should we learn those? Look, the palm thunder is relatively simple. Before her 2 disciples, Sutanji condensed thunderbolts in her palm and then pushed it out before withdrawing it with proficiency. She stood straighter with great confidence. It's super easy. Standing alone in the world and waiting to ascend to become an immortal. This sentence could be used to describe Duga Yi and the other ancestral who had been away from the world for a long time. They were lonely and desolate. Different from Xiao ancestral master, they lost all of their previous forces, let alone their descendants. Most people gave them respect, but they also kept a distance from them in fear. The 3 of them usually gathered at Cloud Ethereal Peak to talk about Tao, so they were also called the 3 Friends of Cloud Peak. Li Wakan, Duga Yi, Xuanhuan. The glories that these names represented had been buried in the passage of time. Regardless if they had been good or evil, no one in this world cared to find out. After all, even their enemies and their enemies' forces and descendants had all been devoured by the long river of time. Their era had long passed. The current era didn't need them. Luckily, in the place called the Internet, no one would care if they were ancestral masters or not. With the goal of becoming godlike figures, they had something to occupy their time. I realize. The immortal-like Taoist dressed in a white Taoist robe and holding a whisk said, the things that we spent all our lives pursuing don't seem important anymore. Perhaps we are getting old, and thus no longer care about certain things. When you are old, you pretend to be profound and mysterious. Beside him, Xuanhuan said with a snicker, if you don't care about things, then don't fight for mid lane with me, huh? Duga Yi said, let's continue the talk about Tao. Let's continue watching the battle with Chitandi at the firm stealth godly palace, and listening to the lecture on Tao given by the old immortal Subodhi at the mountain of mind and heart. I gain more benefits than cultivating for hundreds of years. When we talk with others in the future, we can boast and say that we watched a battle of gods and listening to a lecture on Tao given by an immortal, right? It's a pity that everyone in the world has watched it and listened to it. They are not things belonging to us alone. Master Feng Wu yelled, it seems like something big is happening. Should we go and help them? In the new shop at the East Continent several Earth spiritual generals came down and led the remaining immortal soldiers and generals. Some had huge heaven-hacking axes, and some held the power of wind, thunder, and other heavenly powers. Hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers covered the whole world. Even the prehistoric true demons would be scared by such a great army, let alone a group of weak mortals. How could mortals have the strength to fight the heaven? Mere mortals, surrender to us. Why are you still struggling? The huge axe hacked down with sky-shattering force. As soon as these mortals dodged it, a godly light shot down like a long rainbow. Then, with a boom, a tribulation lightning bolt that could kill real immortals crashed down. The 2 sides of the battle were not on the same level. Heavenly Faction Master Feng's was surrounded by several immortal elites, not to mention others. In the blink of an eye, their faces turned pale, and their steps stumbled. Soon, the cultivators and warriors were forced to retreat continuously in defeat. If the immortals didn't want to capture them alive, most of them would have died already. Die or surrender. As the immortal lights of the spiritual treasures devoured them like ocean waves, one immortal general yelled furiously, but at this moment, don't be scared. Heavenly Faction Master Feng's yelled, the great sage, heaven's equal is battling alongside us shoulder to shoulder. If the immortals and gods are kind, we respect them. If they are cruel, we must fight them. With a mystical iron sword in his hand and covered in blood, the black-robed elder Duga Xiao glared at the enemies who were tightly surrounding him. Even if we die, we have 100,000 heroic souls with us. Higher. His roar resonated all over the region as he fought his way into the enemies without a care for his life. Our heroic souls will live forever. Covered in blood, the members of the heavenly faction charged toward their enemies. Master. Wars were cruel. In the blood-covered battleground, a yell of alarm rose. The whole battleground was in chaos. Su Tanji looked back and saw that Feng Wu and Xin's spiritual shields had broken, and Feng Wu even had a bone-deep wound in her belly. Then, a horrifying immortal thunderbolt crashed down from the sky. She looked up and saw an immortal general looking down from the sky as if he was looking at the ants on the ground. The light from the thunderbolts turned the two girls' faces white. Nothing in the world was constant. Heavenly Tao is merciless. This morning, they had frolicked happily and talked about the recent TV series and game guides, but perhaps they would never return to the place full of blooming flowers and starry lights. They smiled bitterly. No one expected this to be their last moment in the world. At this moment, Su Tanji's mind turned blank. She wondered what spells in her knowledge was powerful enough to block these unimaginably powerful immortals. She couldn't think of one and didn't have time to ponder. Almost subconsciously, she condensed spiritual energy and summoned a thunderbolt in her palm. The palm thunder created a small ball of thunder, and it looked pale and weak. Glancing at the immortal thunderbolt that was as thick as a bucket, the immortal in the sky had a contemptuous and mocking look in his face. This was destiny. However, no one knew that the statement which Duguyi and the other two ancestral mentioned on the Cloud Peak mountain, "We watched a battle of gods and listened to a lecture on Tao given by an immortal," wasn't accurate. It should have been, "We watched a battle of the gods of war and listened to the lecture on Tao given in a sage's faction." Yes, a sage's faction. This was Palm Thunder, the most orthodox, the most basic, and the most mysterious immortal spell used by average immortals, Tongshan, and Patriarch Hongjun in most of the Oriental legends before Fang Qi traveled through space. TL note, both Tongshan and Patriarch Hongjun are mythological figures in ancient China. At this moment, the Palm Thunder collided with the spiritual thunderbolt that the immortal cast. After the thunder, it seemed like the heaven and earth had turned silent. Then, to everyone's horror, they saw the immortal thunderbolt with unrivaled force beginning to shatter and collapse. Chapter 866, Above the Gods, the Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. My goodness. Seeing the dancing thunderbolts from the earth-shaking thunder spells, everyone exclaimed as Su Tanji fought several immortals all by herself without showing any disadvantage. "Isn't she there, the noob and idle streamer?" Some heavenly faction disciples who loved watching such streamers instantly brightened up. "She's using." The mortals were inspired. "You." At the same time, a flute sound exploded in the mind of the immortal soldiers like a sharp whistle piercing the sky. With a jade flute in his hand, a black-robed scholar sent demonic notes into the minds of the enemies again and again. A grey-robed swordsman flew over while standing on a sword which was as bright as lightning. The three ancestral master are here as well. High Holiness, I'm afraid that the immortal soldiers might not be able to capture these mortals in a short while. At this moment, most of the 72 Earth spiritual generals, the 36 Heaven spiritual generals, and the strongest 4 Direction generals surrounded the demon monkey tightly with all kinds of immortal artifacts and spiritual treasures. Except for the ones who descended to capture the mortals, the remaining soldiers out of the hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers and generals all gathered here. Wasterals, they are all wasterals, they can't even arrest a group of mortals. Wondrous Spell High Holiness stared at the demon monkey coldly and found that the latter was watching the battlefield on the ground, which infuriated him even more. At this moment, you even have the leisure to watch others. Think about what will happen to you. Heaven spiritual generals, Earth spiritual generals, the 4 Direction spiritual generals, and immortal soldiers from all families, listen to my command. Go and capture the demon monkey for me. As you wish. Hearing his command, tens of thousands of immortals moved together. A mere demonic immortal dares to fight the heavens. Regardless of where you come from, today, you'll be turned into dust with the land under you. For average mortals, every single immortal was an unimaginable great existence with ultimate superpowers and spells. They could rarely meet their opponents this time. At this moment, all these immortals swarmed up, unleashing all kinds of immortal spells using wind, fire, thunder, and lightning, darkening the whole battleground. Even the masters of the immortal families might not be able to survive these attacks, let alone the minor demonic god in the mortal world. Countless immortal soldiers dressed in shiny silver armor stood in neat formations, looking like a huge silver cliff hovering in the air. As fierce yells sounded, thunderbolts rose above thick clouds in all directions, and spiritual light beams shot 10,000 meters high, illuminating the spiritual figures who were as high as heaven. Some immortals had bodies as giant as mountains, some had spiritual lights around them that were as dazzling as burning sunshine, some had spiritual artifacts with profound and mysterious powers, and some even stood on heavenly dragons and were dressed in great armor, looking unrivaled in their godly magnificence. 27 of the Earth's spiritual generals took the front and charged forward with intense murderous aura, spreading over 90,000 acres, while driving dragon-drawn chariots and holding immortal treasures. They dashed from all directions. A spiritual general crashed his heavy halberd at Sun Wukong's face. Then, he saw the demon monkey lifting his right hand and reaching at his ear before drawing out a slim rod with shiny golden light. Compliant golden hooped rod. He pointed the rod at the sky. The tight siege on the battleground suddenly split open. Although it looked like Sun Wukong was tightly surrounded from above, the situation changed too fast. The huge rod grew in the wind, sending a spiritual general who was holding a heavy halberd flying backward like a cannonball. All the iron-like formations made of tens of thousands of immortal soldiers dressed in silver armor shattered. Then, figures were sent flying backward from the center of the battle one after another. Meanwhile, a rod could be vaguely seen spinning with blurry shadows, attacking like a dragon that was shooting out of the ocean and withdrawing like a dragon returning to the abyss. Instantly, many figures were sent flying like the water drops from a shower. All the immortal soldiers saw this scene in horror as the huge golden hoop rod grew so tall that it reached the end of the heaven and earth and then swept at them. Boom! With continuous loud noises, the immortal array formed by tens of thousands of immortals was broken into two halves in the blink of an eye. The immortals fell from the sky like raindrops in a storm. Heaven spiritual generals. Wondrous spell High Holiness's face was dark. Demon monkey, despite your great abilities, can you escape from the heaven-turning cauldron of my Ying immortal family? One spiritual general dressed in golden armor yelled furiously as a three-legged green cauldron flew out from his hand, engulfed in green mist. The cauldron contained dim Hundun energy as if it was as heavy as the heaven and earth. Like a prehistoric mountain, it crashed down with vicious force. The compliant rod grew as tall as a heaven-reaching pillar and struck down. A huge sound resonated in the heaven and earth. The misty green cauldron cracked in the middle. The second strike hit the center of the cauldron, making it explode with earth-shaking huge sounds. As his immortal treasure was destroyed, the heaven spiritual general felt it in his body, and his face turned white as if he had been struck by a thunderbolt. Try and take my vital spiritual gold sword. Take my heavenly immortal aurora. Take my transformation godly blade. 16 heaven spiritual generals surrounded him and launched streaks of immortal light one after another with world-destroying presence. Regardless of how powerful you are one man. With so many soldiers and generals with us, I'll see how many rounds you can last. The moment he said it, the Monkey King who was dressed in golden armor plucked a handful of monkey hair and blew it at them. Then, countless Monkey Kings appeared around them in the sky and on the ground, striking down with the golden hoop rods and shattering countless spiritual treasures and immortal artifacts as if they were glass and jade cups. At this moment, even the lofty heaven spiritual generals were frightened. They felt like they weren't seeing a monkey but an unrivaled battle god. Having lived countless years and experienced countless battles, they had never seen such a horrifying god who could destroy the heaven and earth with an iron rod. What kind of god is he? High immortal. The four-direction spiritual generals looked grim as well. At this moment, wondrous spell High Holiness remained calm, but his eyes revealed a chilly light. Good demon monkey, today you must die. Four spiritual generals, help my ultimate spiritual figure. The four-direction spiritual array took shape, and wondrous spell High Holiness gathered all of his ultimate wondrous spells together. When the golden hoop trod fell, wondrous spell High Holiness vanished from the mortal world. Spiritual light surged up in the endless void. Beyond the sky, the white clouds opened and revealed a godly figure who was taller than 30,000 meters. Heaven holy spiritual figure. In great horror, the immortal soldiers and generals watched this true immortal whose head and feet touched the heaven and earth respectively. All the people including the immortal soldiers and mortals on the ground stopped fighting subconsciously and looked up at the horrifying spiritual figure that went beyond their imagination. Is this an immortal? The power of the prehistoric immortal families were greater than all mortals' imagination. At this moment, everyone felt like the mortals were just a drop in the vast ocean. Before them, humans were indeed tiny and insignificant. An extremely huge hand extended from beyond the sky and reached for the infinitely small monkey. No one could escape from this ultimate spiritual figure or this vast and horrifying power. It looked like a tribulation appeared under the heaven mandate. Clouds somersault. Suddenly, everyone saw a figure who was stepping on clouds slip from the sun-blocking huge hand and shoot upward. The golden hoop trod shot out like a sharp arrow and grew 10,000 times bigger in the air. The rod that was as thick as a heavenly pillar whipped up roaring heavenly winds and then blazing flames. Stepping on clouds, the small figure who carried the huge rod struck it down with vicious force. Everyone saw that the spiritual figure's head cracked, and a drop of golden immortal blood fell from the sky, shaking the whole universe. Not only the mortal world, but the innumerable immortal sea shook violently, and the ocean of clouds swept backward. Charge! Attack! Seeing this sight, countless cultivators and warriors charged with hoarse yells, looking like surging ocean waves. As if the horn for the counter-strike was blown, countless cultivators and warriors charged at the enemies fearlessly, scaring the immortals both in the sky and on the ground. At least in 10,000 years, people would always remember this rod strike and the figure standing proudly before all immortals and looking down at the heaven and earth in defiance. They would always remember the name, the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. Chapter 867, We're never afraid of a technology competition. While the people from the new shop at the East Continent were battling the immortal families, the half-city shop was also engaged in a fierce battle. Red light rose between the heaven and earth. These people were facing demonic gods who were far more powerful than them. On the huge heaven-devouring turtle, the light beams coming off the godly swords illuminated the heaven and earth. The source of murderous presence has been destroyed. On the vast ocean, the pure white light shone from the heavenly mirror. Under its light, a sword energy beam shot into the weak point of the huge heaven-devouring turtle. The demons who blocked us have been killed. Start targeting. It was a desolate scene on the huge turtle, led by Nalan Hongwu. The cultivators and warriors who were covered in blood panted heavily as they stood over the demons' corpses that were lying all over the ground. Then, sword energies surged up and condensed into a huge heavenly sword in midair, striking toward the vital joints of the turtle. Fire. In the roars of the ocean, circles of destructive lightning energy lit up in the huge cannons that were sitting on the bow of the vital magnetic wind thunder battleship. Looking down, people saw several bright blue light beams tearing through the gloomy ocean and attacking the turtle's joints with accuracy together with the cultivators on the back of the huge turtle. Getting attacked from all sides, all four legs of the turtle were severely injured in the blink of an eye. The true power doesn't lie in physical bodies. The inner determination and unyielding spirit that can withstand countless hardships are the source of true power. On this battlefield, there weren't any great heroes or immortal gods as on the other battleground. Regardless of how bright their sword energies were, they were only little sparks in the heaven and earth. However, they were trying to use these small sparks to illuminate the dark world. One person might not be able to achieve it, but how about a group of them? After receiving severe injuries in its forelegs, the huge heaven-devouring turtle howled pathetically and sank to the bottom of the ocean like a collapsing mountain. The huge heaven-devouring turtle opened its giant mouth and revealed a vast space inside. It was the command space inside the huge turtle. With sword in hand, these people followed the retreating demon soldiers and killed their way into the giant command space inside the huge heaven-devouring turtle. In the past, the weak humans who were stuck between the gods and demons regarded them as natural catastrophes. Today, whoever dared to invade the mortal world would shed blood in the sky. Higher. With sword energies emitting radiant light beams in the dark, Nalan Hongwu took the lead and ran into space, followed by people from different factions. Heavenly Mirror, Awakens sword. With all kinds of godly artifacts and spiritual treasures and all kinds of superpowers, Nalan Hongwu and the others took advantage of the carelessness and overconfidence of the demon soldiers and killed their way into the space. They seemed to come into another small world. In this space, there were many complex paths, making it seem like a dim underground cave. Looking closer, the people saw squirming walls made of flesh. However, it didn't look like the interior of the huge heaven-devouring turtle. There were no impurities being absorbed and excreted, much cleaner and neater than the huge heaven-devouring turtle's stinky huge mouth when they first entered. Sitting on the throne of bones among the troops, the demonic god had a mysterious glint in his eyes. "My lord." A deputy commander looked chilly. "These humans are reckless, give them an inch, and they take a mile. They even dared to kill their way in here." The demonic god sitting high on the throne of bones said coldly, "My ninefold darkness space is extremely complex. Even if they can come in, they can't get out without a map. Perhaps they will get lost in the space before we attack them." Hee hee. Another deputy commander said with a sneer, "After they killed countless demon soldiers, we must give the humans a taste of our great power. After all." Another demon said, "Regardless if it is spiritual treasures, artifacts, or any other things, we're much more advanced than those humans." Hee ha hee. Ha 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 ha. Instead of taking the broad way to the heavens, they must break into our ninefold darkness that doesn't have a gate. In their long history, the demons had created countless advanced items that humans could never imagine. With that said, Unvisual appeared before the demons. Even if we monitor them all the time like this, they'll never notice it. Through the spiritual spell visual projection, they were watching Nalan Hongwu and others. "Nalan, brother Nalan." At this moment, a streak of light from a mirror shone in the ninefold darkness space. Nalan Hongwu turned his head and saw that it was Lanmo who was holding the authentic heavenly mirror. At this moment, except for Team 1 led by Nalan Hongwu, others were all lost in the space. "There's something strange in this space." Nalan Hongwu looked grim. "We might have entered a trap set by these demons." After they cut off the turtle legs and killed their way into this space, Nalan Hongwu, a veteran general, had sensed a weird presence. Cackle. The demon generals in the command center snickered again as they saw that their enemies were indeed trapped. "It doesn't matter." At this moment, Lanmo took out his communication jade and shook it. Soon, it showed a strange and crude map. It looked like a map in the games. Of course, if Fang Chi was here, he would find it similar to the Google Maps in his previous life. The map showed their current position and direction that they were facing. This is the map function that we, the UI Taoist Alliance, newly developed. Under the guidance of the Heavenly Mirror, I drew a small part of the map. When we finish this part, we can use QQ communication to share our location with other people and upload the map at the same time. It will soon show the locations of other people according to their signals. I believe that we'll find each other very soon." Seeing this, the demon general in the command center froze. QQ communication, location sharing, what's that? Hurry. The demon general's face turned livid. Activate spiritual confusion array to disturb the spiritual essence and interrupt their communication. Yes. Soon, Lanmo shook his communication jade. Ugh, strange. There were no signal. What should we do then? Zongwu asked. It doesn't matter. Lanmo said, this is the newest version of the military communication jade developed by the UI Taoist Alliance, and it can process all kinds of signals at the same time. I'll change to electromagnetic signals. Hurry, activate darkness magnetic aurora to interrupt their communication. The demon general sneered, do you think that you can use it by changing signals? A mere piece of human technology dares to compete with the technology of our clan. Huh? Lanmo shook his communication jade in bafflement. Even electromagnetic signals are blocked? I'll try the light wave. Issue the order to activate the darkness connecting array. I'll try the radio waves. Activate black thunder ebony water array. I'll change to infrasound wave. Activate. I'll try ultrasonic wave this time. These humans. Where did they get so many communication methods? Dumbfounded, those demon generals stared at the spiritual spell visual projection before them as the mortals tried different signals on the communication jade and finally got a good connection. Chapter 868, Gods and Demons Are All Defeated. One demon said, the spell that this person used seems to be a spell using outer sounds, just like the spell named Great Sound is silent. We don't have a defense array for such a rarely seen spell, unless we do it personally. In the place where Alan Hongwu and the others were standing, I have a feeling that someone is eavesdropping on our conversation, Lanmo said. The new signals that we switched to were great in the beginning, but now it's lagging again? Do you have a way to stop it? Zongwu asked. Of course. Lanmo said, when the great sage studied in the mountain of mind and heart with his senior brothers, he learned many unorthodox small spells. I'll cast one. In the next moment, the demon generals in the command center began watching a silent movie. A while later, the silent movie turned black. What is going on with these mortals? A demon general roared. This was totally different from the information that they had on humans in their memories. The murderous presence is gone. The Cultivator Alliance has scouted the inner structure of this demon turtle and the origin of these demons. They found that the spiritual essence that it devoured mostly flowed to these places. I've marked these points on the map. Lanmo continued to study the map. Different from the Anton raid, even if we cut off its energy, we won't be able to do great damage to the strength of the demons in here. But Academy Master Go and other cultivators discussed it and found something. After we get familiar with its structure, we can secretly use this tremendous energy in the space and form the 36 Stangang sword array that Shu Mountain Sword faction used to subdue the almighty demon lord. If this array is built, it will give you all a great boost. At this moment, when these people looked at each other, their eyes were full of glints of self-confidence. The sword array that could subdue the almighty demon lord, and it would be powered with such a huge amount of energy. Perhaps this time, they would use their actions to tell their enemies that human wisdom was infinite, just like how they had found the weaknesses of the monsters that were far more powerful than themselves in the raids. This time, they also seemed to have found a solution. This was what they obtained after failing countless times in that virtual world. If we encounter danger, we'll need the raid teams to block it. Lanmo said gravely, we'd better. He pointed at the center of the map and continued, we must monitor this place all the time. Of course. Soon, through communication jades, they shared the information with every cultivator and warrior who had to enter this space. They began working hard in the places where the spiritual essence went through to carry out the plan of building the 36 Stangang sword array. At this moment, the The demonic god sitting on the throne of bones looked even grimmer. The ninefold darkness demon general wasn't a small general with little experience in wars. Right now, he put away his arrogance and began to study the humans in a new light. Borrowing a path through the human world to attack their enemy by surprise was a key part of the plan, and he couldn't allow any mistake to happen at this stage. Except for the demons going out to guard the demon turtle, only a side general and a deputy commander stayed with him. One was a brawny demon god who was dressed in black stone armor covered in strange runes, the other was hovering in the air upside down and engulfed in a chilly presence. Its withered body looked like a corpse that recently died. The demonic god finally walked down from the eternal-looking throne of bones, and its surging demonic presence instantly shook the entire ninefold darkness space. At this moment, an abyss demon with an iron-like black body rushed in. He was followed by a figure who was covered in blood, with blood-red eyes and low hoarse roars. He looked like a demonic god from hell. About to walk out, the three demonic gods in here froze and looked at these two. Who are you? Are they our peers? But we have never seen any demons looking like these two. The demonic god covered in blood said, Who am I? I'm king of enhancement, king of unboxing, and the father of the king of black iron. You asked me who I am? Outrage break. The huge sword crashed down with surging lava. You two deal with the demons on the sides, leave the middle one to us. At this moment, two more voices sounded. Two more teams killed their way into this place. The leader had 5 godly swords spreading behind him like wings, and another had slightly closed eyes and held a sword engulfed in jade like thunderbolts. Clap, clap, clap. At this moment, the demonic god who had horns on his forehead and distorted facial features applauded. I admire you for finding this place in such a short time. But his eyes turned cold. What kind of confidence drove you to appear before me? Right now, they were standing in a vast underground space. The demonic god roared as his bulging muscles expanded. In a short time, he transformed into a giant as tall as 300 meters. Its horns almost reached the top of the space, and the ground shook with each step its huge body took. Its body was still growing until the top of the space was pierced and shattered. An extremely huge demonic god stood on the back of the huge heaven-devouring turtle. When he stepped into the ocean, waves surged up and shattered the surrounding spiritual ships like cannonballs. Even the remaining vital magnetic wind thunder battleships were battered and on the verge of breaking. As if bedlam broke loose, demon soldiers swarmed out from the broken space in large groups. Their number was even bigger than before, blocking the sky and covering the ground. Kill them all. At this moment, who could block such a horrifying demonic god? Yells and screams rose continuously. At this moment, the demonic god from the ninefold darkness struck the deepest fear into their minds. It was undefeatable and unrivaled. Even the huge vital magnetic battleships looked as small as its hands and were shattered by one touch, let alone mortal bodies. Today, I'll show you the price that you must pay for angering with me. However, at this moment, 36 golden light beams lit up at the feet of the demonic god, corresponding with the positions of the 36 stand gang. The spiritual light beams connected and moved like stars. Then, from the space beneath its feet, sword energies rose like a group of stars. What's that? The endless sword energies gathered above its head, and they formed a huge Tai-Chi yin-yang pattern in the sky. The tremendous spiritual essence was drawn out and gathered in the sword array. Although humans couldn't possess such huge spiritual energy, the sword array could contain far more spiritual essence than humans. With a sharp yell, a figure flew up into the high sky while stepping on a sword. You drew out such a huge amount of spiritual essence from the heaven and earth and caused the imbalance of spiritual essence, exhausting the nearby areas. You killed at will and regarded human lives as that of grass. Do you really think that no one in the mortal world can stop you? Flying swords filled the sky, forming a sword curtain before blocking the sky and covering the ground. Then, a force powerful enough to scare demonic gods began to gather in the sword array. Like endless currents, countless sword energies gathered in one spot before transforming into a golden rainbow that connected the heaven and earth, falling from the sky. What is that? At this moment, even the demonic god looked horrified. He sensed the aura of death that he hadn't felt for countless years. In the next moment, an extremely huge golden light beam shot down, the golden light filling the sky and swept in all directions like heavenly power. On the other battleground, the extremely huge spiritual figure collapsed with booming noises like a falling gold mountain or a jade pillar. Kill. Following the great sage, heaven's equal, all the cultivators and warriors charged at the previously arrogant, lofty, and fierce immortals. Retreat, all retreat. In the sky-shaking battle shouts, countless immortal soldiers and generals from different families dumped their helmets and armor while they scrambled to run. They had never experienced such a moment in their lives. On this day, both gods and demons were defeated in the mortal world. Chapter 869, Mr. Fang's New Reward. Going eastwards of Half City and crossing the vast and gloomy ocean, one would see the turbid yellow spring sea. At this moment, the whole area was golden. Light almost engulfed the entire sea area. Even people from thousands of kilometers away could see the aurora in the horizon as if the sun had just risen and dyed the whole world golden. The 36-Stangang sword array of the Shu Mountain faction was designed to subdue demons that mortals couldn't defeat. It could be used by one person as Fang Chi had done when he used it to deal with the Nangong family. It could also be used by multiple people to borrow the heaven and earth's boundless energy. In the legend of Sword and Fairy 1, the Granduncle Master Jiang King who was trapped in the demon-suppressing tower was one of the people who used this array to fight the almighty demon lord. In the legend of Sword and Fairy 2, Li Xiaoyao controlled the array when his group killed the resurrected almighty demon lord. These veteran players were obviously very proficient in all kinds of games, and they mastered some aspects of the games. Arrays were used to activate the force of the heavens and earth, by taking the tremendous energy from the heaven-devouring turtle as the base of the array. The energy level of the array was now on the same level as these demonic gods. All the demons stopped what they were doing and watched the sight in horror. When the golden light faded away, the extremely huge demonic god stared at its chest in astonishment. There was a huge hole in it. Or, an extremely shrill howl spread all over the heavens and earth. Then, it fell on its back. Huge waves surged up as its blood spread up to 1,000 kilometers away. Hurry, escort Mr. Ninefold Darkness out of here. At this moment, the other demon generals lost the will to fight and scrambled to retreat with the severely wounded Ninefold Darkness demon general. The other demon soldiers either died or fled. They didn't even have time to take the huge heaven-devouring turtle with them. Many of the demon soldiers who were not able to flee died together with the footless huge monster in the ocean. It's finally over. The turbid seawater was dyed dark red by the demon blood. Everyone looked fatigued. Hurry and heal the wounded and count the casualties. Orders were issued. This time, both Half City and the new shop at the East Continent had great casualties. Gatinian said in a loud voice, although the resurrection spell needs harsh conditions and is now in great shortage, I have good news for you. We've obtained a major breakthrough in the research of the vital spirit revival recreation that the MI faction used for their dead disciples. Even though we can't bring the disciples back to life as the MI faction did, we can soon direct them to reincarnate and begin cultivation again. For those people who had no factions, we won't let their heroic souls wander outside. Our Cultivator Alliance will help them too. In the new shop at the East Continent, Faction Master Feng's with Heavenly Faction also heard the good news. He said excitedly, "Now, our faction is truly powerful. Can we really do that? My goodness." Instantly, cheers spread to every corner of the world like a tsunami. For cultivators, if their vital spirits weren't destroyed, they weren't dead. Only at this moment could the major factions call themselves top factions with pride. Right now, covered in wounds, Feng Wu and Xin said with tears on their faces, "Master, even the dead can be brought back to life. Why did we fight so hard anyway? I thought we'd die together." "Nonsense." Su Danji rolled her eyes at them and flicked her finger on their heads while saying, "Who do you think your master is? I'm Fairy Su of Tanji Palace, the popular technical streamer. I hit them with a palm thunder from the left hand. When they didn't die, I hit them again with a thunderbolt from my right hand." She made gestures while she spoke. "Even though they are immortals, your master can deal with them. Besides, those disciples of the Mi faction looked like new people after they reincarnated, and they lost all of their cultivation strength. What a bother." "Right." With sudden understanding, Feng Wulanjun looked back at the shop and said, "Then, after buying so many games, we'd have to buy them again? They patted their chests and said with great relief, "Fortunately, we didn't die." "What are you thinking about? You know nothing but games. When you have time, you must spend more time on TV series." "Okay. But," Feng Wu said sadly, "the great sage is now put under 5 phases mountain. Yeah, it's said that a monk who's going to the west for Buddhist scriptures will come and get him out. We'll see it soon. I wonder what's the background of the Tathagata Buddha. How come he's so powerful?" Xin said, "Even with the cloud somersault technique, which allows one to cover 108,000 li in one leap, the great sage couldn't get out of his palm." While walking toward the teleportation ray with Su Danji, she rubbed her dirty face and extended one palm while saying, "Even if it's tens of thousands of times bigger than this, it can't be that large. You two are, hurry back and heal your injuries. You can talk about this after you recover." Su Danji immediately escorted the 2 pale-faced girls back to Liuyan Taoist Palace. "After we heal, let's go and watch Journey to the West together. I want to watch the great sage travel 108,000 li with the cloud somersault after he comes out." Okay. Seeing the great sage come out as lively as before was all they hoped for after watching all the dangers that he had experienced at the demon hacking platform, Loz's elixir brazier, and in the palm of the Tathagata Buddha. The people with slight injuries were cleaning up the battleground. All of them were talking about their favorite topics while they worked. This place was in ruins, but they believed that the damage was only temporary, and everything would be better since they were growing stronger each day. Perhaps one day, they could fly under the vast starry sky on their swords, going to wherever they wanted. They would fly casually and relaxed, covering 90,000 li in one breath like a rainbow. At that time, they might be able to go beyond the starry sky and see how vast the universe really was. At this moment, Mr. Fang had returned to his shop, looking fatigued. He was looking through the spoils of war. During this synchronization with Sun Wukong, he had used 3 godly weapon fragments to trade for the one-time use of the godly weapon, the compliant golden hooped rod. Only half of the 6 godly weapon fragments were left. It was a big consumption. Fortunately, the system would compensate him with the gift bag. Task: severely punish the troublemakers. Completed. Task reminder: a large group of troublemakers will come to the new shop. Host must deal with it solemnly. Task reward: carry a rock 1, system gift bag 1, double coupon for the cultivation room 1, it will increase cultivation speed. Task rating: A+. Mr. Fang was baffled since he expected the rating to be lower than the last time due to the casualties. How come the rating is higher? After all, there were 0 casualties last time, but he didn't get A+. The only level higher than this was an S. Is it because? Mr. Fang glanced at the group chat and saw that people were announcing and cheering for the victory in the battleground outside Half City. Is it because of this? Do you want to claim this reward? Yes. Chapter 870, New Snacks, Super Yummy, Mustard-flavored seaweed, durian candies, stinky tofu. In the Kanglan City shop. Obviously, many players had joined the battle as allies. They didn't make great contributions on the central battleground, but some paladins and priests provided great assistance in the battle. Without the symbol of life provided by the system, the resurrection spell required many strict conditions to cast, but it had made great contributions. At this moment, a group of elves led by Elder Sewell was healing the wounded with the unique healing spells that they had learned. "It's unbelievable!" Elf girl Sal exclaimed. The great sage was like a god of war. Even the players in the Candlin City shop were talking about it. That great sage, heaven's equal, really showed up. Big Black Dragon Gulf stared at the people who were trying to describe the fighting scenes with gestures, and his big eyes opened wide. "Did you see the havoc in heaven, that part in Journey to the West? I assure you that the battle was even more stunning than havoc in heaven." Streetleton gestured with his hands and said, "He struck out his rod like this." Hiss standing before him, Black Dragon Gulf shrunk his neck involuntarily as if he was afraid that the great sage would appear and hit his head with the rod. What do you think happened? He broke the head of that immortal spiritual figure, and blood flowed out. So strong. He is a real god. Unfortunately, his cultivation system and combat techniques are more fitting for the people in the East Continent. Beside them, Street Willie said with a sigh, "We can only get some inspirations. I wonder." They exchanged a look. "Forget it. Let's go and play League of Legends. Let's go and play Dark Souls. People get their skills by practicing hard." Meanwhile, Mr. Fang was on the second floor of the shop at the East Continent. "You obtained, Carrier Rock 1, System Gift Bag 1, double coupon for the Cultivation Room 1. He knew the great power of Carrier Rocks, even though the Carrier Rocks had the shortcoming of not being able to protect Fang Chi, but it could recreate the complete characters from the games and movies and required only 10% synchronization rate with the chosen character, which was much less difficult than the 20% synchronization rate that Mr. Fang must achieve before he could synchronize with any characters in person. System Gift Bag. Since this gift bag had excellent quality, Mr. Fang had greater odds to find powerful items in it. This is good. At this moment, Mr. Fang was holding a purple silk-covered box in his hands in his own room upstairs. It was again the exciting moment to unbox. Mr. Fang put the gift box on the desk carefully and opened it slowly. Immediately, blinding golden light shot out from the box. What good stuff did I get this time? Items popped out from the system gift bag and filled the square desk before him. There were weapons, snacks, and items that were put into the system storage due to the limited space in the room. There were even. Mr. Fang glanced at the beautifully wrapped game disc. He grabbed it and read the description. Collector's edition of God of War 1-2. After activation, I'll get the right to sell God of War 1 and God of War 2 as well as the conditions to obtain the tasks for this series. I got a new game. What else have I got? Mr. Fang looked at the desk and saw a wrist blade that had a strange shape. Looking at the blood-colored light and the godly blade engulfed in fiery presence, he realized that it was Flame Wave Blood Blade? Almighty Demon Lord, Chonglu. Fang Chi stared at the wrist blade dumbfoundedly. Flame Wave Blood Blade. This blade is made of the godly iron from meteorites and the Flame Wave Spring Soul. It's a demonic weapon that no human can handle. Using it will greatly increase energy consumption and reduce synchronization time. Please use it with great caution due to its great power. FCK? He rubbed his eyes. FCK. Ha 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 ha. Almost everyone downstairs heard the wild laughter from upstairs. What else have I got? Although synchronization with a character who had much greater cultivation strength than himself would greatly shorten the synchronization time and increase the energy consumption, and Fang Chi might be kicked out of synchronization mode after using 2 strikes. However, this weapon gave Fang Chi another powerful hidden card. What else? Snacks. There were bags of snacks on the desk. He dug through them and finally found a black rock, Carrier Rock, a 10% synchronization rate, It can summon a character from a game, a movie, or a TV series for a certain time. That's all. Mr. Fang dug through the items and found that the rest were all snacks. While browsing the system interface, he knew that this task was completed. The good news was that another task, Challenger's Tutorial School, Intermediate, was close to completion, and it would end soon. At this moment, he heard a prompt from the system. The system is 60% upgraded. The expansion of Wrath of Lich King is completed. The summer gift bags in Dungeon Fighter Online are released online. The pool party skins in League of Legends are online. Considering the different customs, the summer game outfits for the people in this world were less exposed compared to those in the original version. New game and new expansion, and new gift bags. Mr. Fang looked at the sky outside with a loss of words. It was already summer, but there were no summer break in this world. While he was musing over this thought, Fang Chi heard a knock on his door. Remembering what had happened the last time when he opened the box, Mr. Fang had closed the door before opening the box this time, but now, he had nothing to hide, so he opened the door. Huh, Xiaoyu? Haven't you returned to your faction? Jiang Xiaoyu said, I've good news, we're having the summer break soon. Royal Father delivered many crystals to me and told me to study hard. But I have no place to spend them, hee. Huh? Mr. Fang widened his eyes. You even have summer breaks? What do you mean? Jiang Xiaoyu said with a pout, we're very tired from studying in the faction. Each day after studying in the faction, we must play games. With such a tight schedule each day, why can't we have a summer break? During the summer break, we will have lots of free time after playing games. I can go to the Elf Forest with Sister Sala and others. I can also go on to the Orc Kingdom. I heard that the Half City is organizing a so-called Ninefold Darkness expedition team, and our Heavenly Academy and Heavenly Faction are planning an expedition to the Void. I can join them too. Forget it, those places are dangerous. Huh. As if discovering a new continent, Jiang Xiaoyu looked behind Mr. Fang and saw so many snacks. Boss, how come you have so many snacks that I've never seen before? Oh. Glancing at the snacks on the desk, Mr. Fang got an idea. Xiaoyu, if you promise not to go to Ninefold Darkness or the Void, I'll give you half of the snacks. Jiang Xiaoyu hesitated and then looked at the snacks on the desk before saying reluctantly, then, I promise you I won't go. Then, you can have this, and this. Jiang Xiaoyu watched Mr. Fang split the snacks into two equal piles and pushed one pile toward her. Wow! In disbelief, Jiang Xiaoyu carried the snacks in her arms and hurried downstairs, afraid that Mr. Fang would change his mind. After putting them all on the tea table in the lounge area, she saw two exquisite bags with fruit pictures and words durian-flavored candies. In a translucent box were pieces of black tofu shiny with oil, traditional stinky tofu. There were also two exquisite bags that had pictures of seaweed on them, mustard-flavored seaweed. At this moment, most people had finished cleaning up at the battleground. Sutanji and the others returned to the shop, and their eyes lit up at the snacks on the desk. Xiaoyu, you bought so many snacks. The shop owner gave them to me. Seeing the expectant gazes from Sutanji and the others, Jiang Xiaoyu said bashfully and reluctantly, would you like to have a little? Can we? Okay, Xiaoyu, you're so nice.